Participants, the session will start in few minutes.
Frederick, sir, you want to start, sir?
So, good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. R. Kaviyarasan from RGMCET. Warm welcome to all the participants for the second day of the FDP program on recent trends in computer science conducted by the Department of CAC, RGMCET. Yesterday, we had an eminent speaker, Dr. Braveen from VIT Chennai, who shared his ideas on biometric and image processing. Today, we have yet a renowned person to share his ideas on research article writing. On behalf of the Department of CAC RGMCET Nandial, we are happy and proud to welcome Dr. Terence Frederick Fernandez as speaker for the second day of the FDP program. A short intro about our guest. Dr. Terence Frederick received his PhD and MTech degree from Pondicherry Engineering College, BTech degree in Computer Science and Engineering from Sri Manakala Vinayagar Engineering College, which is affiliated to Pondicherry University. Over the years, he has been working for Rajiv Gandhi College of over the years. Over the years, he has been working for Rajiv Gandhi College of Engineering and Technology as associate professor in the Department of Information Technology. He has published 30 papers in international journals, conferences, and a couple of chapters in books. Now he serves as an official reviewer of Hindavi Journal of Computer Networks and Communication, Journal of Advances in Science, Technology and Engineering. Recently, he is appointed as member of editorial board for the International Journal of Latest Technology in Engineering, India. He has successfully qualified GATE with a percentage of 92.53 and was ranked second at the regional level. He is a member of professional bodies like IEEE and ISTE since 2014. He served as an external examiner for SCSV MB University, Kanjipuram in 2016. He is also currently supervising few PhD scholars from the parent university. He successfully mentored IITM NPTEL's course titled Introduction to Research in 2016. He was a guest speaker about spoken tutorial conducted by IIT Bombay on 6th July 2015 as a part of Digital India Week. He has been qualified for IELTS in the last year. He is also a certified musician in piano and keyboard by Trinity College, London. We welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for the nice introduction. I never got such a nice introduction anywhere else. So I feel myself very much honored and privileged to be a part of the session. Before I have to start the session, I think I owe a big load of thanks to the management, to the staff, and to all from the University of RMK. And I'm very much indebted to you all to be a part of this particular session, or to, if I could say, to host this session. Okay. So let me, without further ado, let me start my presentation here. Before that, a swift check on my screen and my voice. Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Yeah, my screen, is it shared now? I
Yes,
just
sir.
want
It
to
has
check.
been shared, sir.
Yeah, fine. You can see my PPT, sir.
Yes, sir. You can go for a slideshow, sir.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir. Thanks. I'm so happy to be a part of, as I said before, and a welcome to all the listeners here. Myself, Terence Frederick, as he has mentioned, and here in this session of FDP, let me present the trends of writing these days. Okay, the trends, when I talk about trends, I put the word wantedly vogue here. Vogue or fashion or the trend means what are the current culture of writing that is existing for all the researchers or the academicians out there. Okay, and secondly also about certain things that are seemingly true but not true, and certain things that are seemingly false or fake but still true. So those are called as vague components. So that's what I mentioned, the two V's here. Vague components means those things that are not exactly true when it comes to academic writing, and vogue means those things that are in current trend of writing. Okay, that's what I'm going to explain in this present session, and I think this will be more useful if I may take a liberty in saying for a newbie writer, that is for those who are started to write a paper or just in the process of writing their paper at an amateur or a novice level. Okay, for the professional people, I can I believe I can give you few tips. I don't know, only time will tell you that much. But for the others, it can be a treat for them. Okay. So without further ado, I'll just go on with the presentation here. So three aspects I'm going to discuss here. The first is generally about how you can write a technical paper. Okay. So how what are the things involved in writing a paper or authoring a paper, whatever it is. That's the first thing that I'm going to discuss now. Yeah, I think I'm getting a raising hand here. Is there something which I can help you out with? I don't know. Okay. If it's not so, I'll just continue with what I'm doing now. Okay.
Kindly continue, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that is the first thing. The second thing is the myths that is involved. As I was telling before, certain things which are true, seemingly true but not true, and certain things which are seemingly false or fake but are true. That is the second aspect of my discussion today. And finally, if I have time in this session, I'll try to discuss the vogue factors, the current fashion or the current trend upon which you can write a paper these days. Okay, so these three things I'll discuss now. Before I start my discussion, I'll make a small content disclaimer here because the things that I'm presenting are my own. Whatever I'm telling are my own, it's not being copied. But the content or the figures I've copied from the Google or the other sites. Okay, so all these GIFs and the JPEG that I'm trying to use here are taken from elsewhere. But whatever I'm telling, all this compilation are my own. Okay, so I'll just make a small confession kind of disclaimer here at the start before I start. Okay. Without further ado, let me go into it. First is how you can write a paper. Okay? There is a very reason we are all gathered around here. So you can see a popular figure at the left bottom side. There's a guy. You can imagine yourself there taking a piece of PC with some materials on his side. The other side he has a light lamp and a dustbin because he has to throw few rough drafts into it. Okay, so that's just a gesture or a kind of symbolism. We can just show how we can write a paper. Okay, so how we are going to write and get your paper published. So I guess you all can see this workflow of how you write a paper and you can get it published over the screen there. So you can imagine yourself being the scientist on the A side here. Okay, so you are a scientist. So whenever you write a paper, don't imagine yourself as a newbie or something like that. You can call yourself scientist. That is, you are going to be a scientist of your own paper. Okay, so you are going to be someone who is well versed with your own writing. So you can call yourself a scientist then. Okay, there's nothing harm in doing so. So you imagine yourself as a scientist there at the first, and you are going to prepare a manuscript. Gently follow the workflow. You are a scientist. You are going to prepare a manuscript. How you are going to write that one, we'll see it later. Now I'll just tell you about the workflow. You are going to write a manuscript. Once that is done, you can see further down the manuscript, you are going to put in a journal. Okay. I am putting a big umbrella of term called as journal here. It could be a white paper. It could be a proceeding to a conference. It could be a journal or a magazine or letters to some kind of publishers. Just I'm putting a word, umbrella term, or a common word called as a journal here. Okay, you write a manuscript, you put it in the journal. Then what happens is when you mail it to a journal, the first person who's going to read it is going to be editor. Okay, the editor in chief or the editor, he may be associated with an editorial board or a team of persons who call themselves as an adjunct editors. Okay, so then will be there. They will try to go through your journal. I put the word carefully here, go through. I'll explain or rephrase what is that go through later on in my PPT. For now, you just understand they will try to, read or take a glance at your journal. Once they take a glance, they can either throw it here if he or she, that is editor, finds it not so educative or good for their journal, he can just throw it away, or he can keep it for himself and he can send it to the reviewers. So two things will happen with the editor. He can either forward the article which you have sent to a journal to the reviewers, or he can just throw it away. Once it has reached the editor, what he will do, as I've told, if he's sending it to, if he finds it good, he's going to send it to the reviewers. So I have given the figure 3 reviewers. It is most cases it's like 3, but sometimes it can be 1, it can be n number. Okay, generally it will be sent to reviewers. Now here there is one more clause I want to mention. The reviewers can be known. Sometimes in certain journals, the editor will ask you, that is the publisher, the person who is submitting the manuscript, the author, to select the reviewers from their side, certain journals. But in certain other journals, the reviewer will send it to any reviewers he or she wants to. That particular process is called as a blind review. Okay, he can send it to any reviewer. Okay, so it can be a peer review, non-blind review, or it can be a blind review where he can send it to any reviewer you want to. Okay, once that review process is over, and if they find it really good, they will accept it and it will be sent to the community in due course. Here, 4 things could happen with the reviewer. 4 possible results could happen. Firstly, the reviewer, if they find it, they find lot of mistakes and it is totally irreparable. The paper cannot be repaired at all. They will just reject the paper. Secondly, if there are some corrections, the corrections will be made to the author. The author has to complete or accomplish their questions in the form of errata or whatever it is, and they have to mail it back to the reviewer. Now, this corrections can be a major revision or a minor revision. Okay, that is the other 2 sub things that I was trying to say. And finally, the reviewer can accept it blindly if the paper is really of top quality material. Okay, the reviewer can either accept your paper, reject your paper, accept with major revisions, or accept with minor revisions. And the reviewers can agree with the editor team to publish it to their journal with the corrections or with all the revisions. Okay, so this is the process that generally could happen. I think everyone is aware of this one. Now, let me just rephrase about how you can author a manuscript. That is the first part of our work. Okay, so firstly, you are going to fix your research objective. Nothing more than that. You're going to fix your research objective when you start working upon any kind of paper or manuscript. So how do you objectify your work? Okay. Again, I'm saying I'm just putting a broad term of research here. Doesn't always mean that you don't include a survey paper onto it. All that I'm just saying it's a new paper, so I'm just giving a research word here. Okay. So the first thing you need to understand about research is research objective is it has to be new. When we talk about something new, I don't mean that your work has to be a new one. No, not at all. You can talk about old things as well, but it has to be presented in a new way. That is, for example, just say, for example, you are trying to, give a survey paper on maybe deep learning techniques or something like that. You are not going to give any novel idea into your paper, but what you're going to give is you're going to have a kind of collection of ideas that's already been said or implemented or published. But you need to give those ideas in a newer way, in a newer bottle, something like a old wine in a new bottle. Okay, so that is first criteria you need to remember when you write an objective for your paper. Okay. Or in other words, you can take an old case, but you need to give a new solution. That is even acceptable when we talk about research objective. Okay, that's the first thing you need to remember. Secondly, you need to convert the data into facts. You can see this figure at the bottom. You have an orange colored stick man to your left corner bottom. That's actually representing a data because he's holding a sheet that symbolizes a data or something. So you need to have that caliber to convert the possible data to facts. There is a second thing you need to do it here. So say for example, we are all in the midst of this pandemic and we have a lot of data like this. Just say for example, there has been a rise of COVID cases in Tamil Nadu, accelerating at the range of 2,000 per day. And say for example, way back in, way ahead in the northern side in Delhi, we have the cases accelerating at 3,000 cases a day. So these are the data. 2,000 cases a day and 3,000 cases a day are data. So what facts you can derive from that is, we have more toll of new COVID cases in the national capital of our country, Delhi, succeeded by the southern part, Chennai. So in such a way, you need to gather all the data and you need to convert them into meaningful or tangible facts. So that is the other thing you need to put in objective. They don't worry about your data. You have the data with yourself. All the editors or the potential reviewers would need only the facts. So make sure you map the data that's there with you to manageable facts. Second thing. Thirdly, make sure that your confidence level is the right thing. Okay, you can see a small figure which I have copied from the Google, showing a meter between non-confident to overconfident, and the middle you have confident. It's showing that confident. Okay, so it actually means something like the level of confidence when you write a manuscript must be right. Okay, suppose say for example you are not truly confident about what you are trying to do. You may not try to look for facts beyond what you think. Something like you'll not be you'll be moving along in circles when you start thinking about your research. You won't go anyone further than that. So you make sure that you are not underconfident. And what happens if you're overconfident about what you do? Just say for example you're submitting a paper and you're getting it rejected. It could happen for everyone or anyone. So if you're getting rejected, you will not be in a position to accept the criticism given by them, or you may not take it in a constructive way, or you'll just get it over. You'll not go any further than that one. So you should not be overconfident when you are writing a work. Okay. So all these things are essential when you go on doing this one. Okay. And finally, final research objective that I want to tell you is, make sure your work is unpublished, and that is the mother of all research objectives. Okay, being new, converting data to facts, having good confidence level, and top of everything, just like a cherry on a cake, you make sure your work is unpublished. So how do you ascertain the fact that your work is unpublished? Simple. You go to a search engine, you search for your domain, whatever you're trying to publish, you ascertain that your work is not published. That is good. I'm not saying that is wrong, but a right way is to browse through legit journals. Okay? Make sure you go to good journal databases and ascertain the fact that your research objective is not published anywhere else. Next question pops in your mind. What is a good journal, or what is a good database for journal? Okay. Anything I believe is a good journal, in my opinion, if it is from a good database. So what are good databases for a journal? Give me time, I will explain it to you. So what are the good databases you have for journals? There are many. I think I'll start with the most famous one that could pop into everybody's mind. You can see there the famous tree, the dense tree, and this wise man is trying to pick something out from the tree. Yes, the symbol of elsewhere. or Elsevier, however you may pronounce it. So this publisher has brought everyone around us with two good databases. The first one being Science Direct and the second being Scopus. Okay, so two wonderful databases which gives a plethora of kind of uh, journals that you could even guess in your wildest dreams. What I can tell you. So first is Science Direct. First, Science Direct is going to offer you full text of all the works that's there, only belonging to Elsevier publications. I repeat, Science Direct is going to give you full text of all Elsevier publications only. Okay, it's going to hold. Secondly, Scopus. I think everyone is very much impressed with their particular publication being indexed in Scopus. We are all accustomed or institutionalized through our years listening to Scopus indexing, etc., etc. I'll tell you what is that. Scopus is going to give you abstracts of both Elsevier and non-Elsevieric kind of journals. Okay, whatever Elsevier is publishing and whatever Elsevier is not publishing, something like IEEE or other publishers, they are giving. Even those will be indexed in Scopus databases. And from the data, it's been said like there are 47 million, kind of papers available in Scopus. The website, you can mark it if you're interested. It's scopus.com. Okay, it's spelled the same, scopus.com. You can just log into that one and you can check if particular journal is available in Scopus. Say for example, you have a journal name, you want to check if it's available in Scopus, you can check it. And secondly, you have your own credential, you can log in and you can find number of Scopus indexing that you are carrying in the name of magazines or journal or conferences or in white papers. Okay. Second good, there is a third good database. That is, first database are provided by Science Direct and Scopus, and second or third, if I should say, good database for a journal is the Web of Science. So it is provided by the publishers Clarivate Analytics, as you can see there. That is a good database as well. Okay, one of the best, and it relatively has a very small amount of articles compared to other publication. It only has 25,000 articles, and among which just 77,000 are the science journals. So 25,000 articles and just 7,000 science journal into it. Okay, so you can just check into mjl.clarivate.com. Okay, mjl.clarivate.com to check if your particular journal is belonging to this one. Okay, and that's one thing. And into this, similar to Scopus indexing that is there with the Science Direct and Scopus, here we do have something called as SCI, which is Science Citation Index. Okay, so all those journals that are associated with WOS or Web of Science will have an index called as SCI or Science Citation Index for all the science journals. And one more thing, something like SSCI, which is called as Social Science Citation Index, only for social science based papers. And one more called as AHCI, that is Arts and Humanities Citation Index. So I repeat again, three kinds of indexing are there in Web of Science. First one, SCI, Science Citation Index for all science papers. Second is SSCI, which is going to be Social Science Citation Index. And thirdly, AHCI, AHCI, which is Arts and Humanities Citation Index. In addition, sometimes there is one citation called as SCIE, which is Science Citation Index Extended. Okay, a small claw difference is there. Okay, that's only for the administrators, not much for us. Okay, all that we need to make sure is we get an indexed in Web of Science when we read. Next is the Thomson Reuters. I'm sure many of wherever you refer, they don't try to include this as a good database, but I have wanted to include this in good database because most of the references are, referenced only from this particular database. Okay, even though they don't hold a level of class of as of Web of Science or Scopus, Thomson Reuters have more kind of citations, index journals. I mean, so that is a very reason I'm trying to include. So it's always good to go through the papers that are indexed in Thomson Reuters as well. Okay, you can refer to thomsonreuters.com. That's a website where you can search for index journals. Okay, and finally, the two Jambawans, or if I should say the two gods of technical journals, the IEEE and Springer Link. IEEE is very special because it only deals with technical kind of stuffs. Publications from computer science, electrical and electronics are all here. You can search in full text. I'm talking about IEEE here, abstract or index over here. There are almost 51 lakh journals or papers available in IEEE, approximately, and it's been said 20,000 kind of papers are being added for each month. So it's a big, it's a huge database altogether. And finally, I think you're all aware of this particular horse-shaped logo that turns to the side with the blue and the orange colored Springer kind of database, which can be accessed by link.springer.com. I failed to mention the website for IEEE. I think everyone is aware of that one. IEEE Explore. You're all aware of that one. Okay. So Springer website is link.springer.com. Okay. There are almost 135 lakh papers in Springers. That again has all disciplines. IEEE is going to have only computer science, electrical, electronics, engineering, technological disciplines, but Springer is going to have all: history, geography, medical, arts, humanities, whatever it is, it's going to carry. That is the very reason it's having one of the biggest database, that is 135 lakhs almost approximately. Okay. So these are the good databases you have for a journal. Okay. Next, once you are through marking the objectives by looking at a good database for journal, you need to make sure that you follow the author's guidelines that are given in the journal website. Okay, something like a rules to be followed or the protocols to be followed when you're writing manuscript. The first and obvious thing is the format. Okay, you are aware of it. Formats generally will take in two forms. You can either develop it in Word format in Microsoft Word document, or you can use a LaTeX. Okay, it is written as LaTeX. It has to be pronounced as LaTeX, LaTeX. So you have formats like this. Make sure that you follow the formats that are clearly given in the page. Okay. My idea, it's not the legal one, but my idea, what I used to do is I'll try to take that particular page or the template and I'll try to map my idea into it. Okay, I'll try to put it in. I think you are all having your own ideas how you can format it. Make sure that the fonts are proper, the paragraphing is proper, the indenting is proper, interline spacing, line between the paragraphs, and finally your margining and your kind of columning styles. So it's a single column or double column, whatever it is. Okay? All these things will come under formatting. Okay? So make sure that the formatting guidelines are met first of all. Okay, that is the first and the foremost thing. You need to make sure when you are trying to tailor fit your work to the journal thing. Okay. Second, see to it that the journal is expecting you to give the results or not. Okay, I'll tell you, not all journals will be requiring a results. Okay, I remember way back in my days when I was publishing in OSS, Optical Society of America's OFC. Okay, that is a good database for optical papers. They don't expect results those days. Okay, so you can try to publish the things if you are not completed your work. But there are certain journals that only accepts your paper when you have a good results or when you have a good proof. Okay, so make sure that if the journal is expecting results, you put the results. If it doesn't expect the results, or you can put it, you can put it. If it doesn't want the results, don't put the results. So that you follow it. And thirdly, the time. Okay, acceptance. If you have seen the first slide of today's discussion clearly, I would have given a time factor. That is, you are sending to the editor and it is accepting or rejecting, and it is sending to reviewer. He can accept or reject with some revisions, and the paper will be published. All will take some time. The time can be as small as tiny as 1 week or 2 weeks, even a year. Okay, so make sure that the time limit is being met. Okay, if you are a student doing a course of 1 or 2 years in some PG level or something like that, make sure that you have a journal where the time is being met with your criteria. That is the thing you need to make sure. Next, once you finish the author's guidelines, how you can organize or write your manuscript. Okay, First, the obvious thing is title. Okay, make sure make sure the title is easily understandable. Okay, it is good to play with titles. There's nothing wrong. You can have long titles. It's not a bad thing, but uh, a good way to write a title is make sure the title is not too long or not too short. Okay, say it has some 5 to 10 words. Will be a right or I could say a a good thing to have a title. Don't include any much technical words. Don't stuff it with vocabs or anything. Everything will flop. Okay, try to have a title as simple, and it should try to give an idea of your paper. I would give an analogy of title here of writing a manuscript similar to a title for a movie. Okay, if your movie has to be a hit, unless it's a commercial one, the title must be appealing to the audience. So make sure the title has to be appealing to the audience. Right here is the editor or not. Okay, make sure the title is appealing or good for them. Okay, we'll explain about how to write the titles later on second half, so not to worry. So next is an abstract. Again, following the movie analogy, I will just tell you, reckon you, this writing an abstract is something like a trailer for a movie. Okay, don't stuff it with all the technicalities or the climax of a particular movie into a trailer. Nobody does that one. Nobody puts a climax into a trailer. So that would eventually flop the movie. In similar way, don't try to put all the formulas or the secret ingredients which are going to put in your paper into the abstract. Unless give a taste of what you could put there in that paper. So that will try to, give the editor eagerness or the reviewer's eagerness to go what the paper could sound like. So you try to give an abstract shot. And one more thing, abstract word limit is different for different journals. I remember in OFC, that is Optical Fiber Communication magazine, the abstract should only contain 23 words. There was a word limit there. Very commonly, you would see abstract having word limit 70 or 80. I have even seen some, kind of papers that is accepting abstract with the limit of 300. So it's again directed to the format of the journal. Okay, you need to follow the format properly, and you need to write the abstract accordingly. Okay, so word limit, you take care of it. Format I already told you. So what font that you have take care already. But make sure that abstract has only the details, what you are trying to say, and what you have a small idea, small taste of what you could try to give in your main work. Okay, that's an abstract. Keywords. Anything you wish to put into the editor's minds, or anything which you feel that your work would highlight. All those things you can put into keywords. Maybe the network uh, architecture you can put it there. Say you're working in a cloud computing paper, you can just put cloud computing, or you're working on cyber security, you can put cyber security. You're working on security in cloud, you can just put security, cloud. And you're working on some kind of algorithm, something like deep learning algorithm, you can put something like that. There's nothing wrong. You try to put the keywords, don't stuff into the keywords. Okay, make sure that they are limited to some words, because in certain journals they'll try to limit the keywords. Make sure you stick on to what you're writing. Okay, and next I've said something like IMRAD. Okay, so what is this IMRAD? Is introduction, method, result, and discussion. I repeat, intro, method, result, and discussion. Okay, so this is not only for technical journal, this is for any journal. Okay, whatever journal it is, art, science, medical, whatever journal you want to write, make sure that you follow this IMRAD, which is one good format which I found it interesting. That's the reason I'm sharing it with you. So what will have an introduction? Why you are doing this study, that you write it for an introduction. Why you are doing this manuscript, what is the reason behind it, not why you're doing it. Okay, that you put it in introduction, followed by the method, how you are going to proceed with your work. That is the method or the methodology you're going to put. Introduction answers why, method actions how, answers how. Next is R for result. That is the outcome of your work. If there is an outcome, you can put outcome. Otherwise, survey means you can just deduce or infer from what you have surveyed, that you can put it as an outcome of your work. And finally, D for discussion. So what's next? You can just make some comparison with existing work if you have done something new, or you can make comparison among the works which you have submitted. So all these things will come under IMRAT. And finally, a conclusion, something like a climax to a movie, as I was mentioning, how you want to conclude with the result that you have made. Make sure that you quantify in your conclusion. Don't say that this algorithm the first does better than that one, that does better than this one. Make sure you put a percentage level. There has been 5% increase in latency when you're trying to use that one. Now there has been 5%, betterment in bandwidth or whatever it is. You can just put, you can quantify it, or you can just put number of packet droppings reduced to 400 per second, something like that. You can put it. You quantify everything when you put it in your paper, not just in conclusion, everywhere. And finally, about referencing, make sure the referencing is right. Okay, I'll tell about referencing here. There are a number of formats. I'll just quote a small example here. Okay, this is a small journal format which I am trying to share it with you. You can see two journal references which I have made at the top and the bottom. The top one is something which is not yet been published. The bottom one is something which has been published. Okay, this I'm saying is not the only way of kind of referencing a journal, but this is one good way. Okay, so that's the reason I'm telling you. So here, when you see it, the author's name I've given it in this purplish color. Okay, make sure that you write the author's name, and middle you can put and or whatever it is when you are putting the final, before you put the final author's name, followed by a comma, and followed by the name of the journal, title of the journal. Okay, here it is Profile Network Traffic Management Game Theory, followed by the publisher name. So it's actually a book project here. So just put book project on opportunities and challenges in Internet of Things and cyber physical systems, followed by the publisher name. Here it is Apple Academic Presses. So I just put that one. Okay. And finally, that's all. Then you can just put accepted if it's not yet published. I repeat again, the format is the author's name, followed by the title of the paper, followed by the publisher, followed by the publishing company. This is the title of the journal or book. This is the publishing company. And finally, if it's accepted, like that you can put it, if the paper is not yet published. And secondly, if it's published, same thing, you put the author's name at the start, followed by, within the double quotes, you put the title of the paper that you have done, followed by the publishing journal, and followed by this ISSN number, which you can see it in copper sulfate color. ISSN, I think you're aware of it. It's International Standard Serial Number. Okay. For journals, you will have this. For books and proceeding, you will have an ISBN number that uniquely identifies a particular paper. Okay. Followed by the page number here. Okay. Once it's published, you will have a page number. Make sure you are referring that one. And date of indexing, you put it, which will be there in the journal website. Followed by the volume and the number. Make sure that you put the volume of the journal. Typically, not always, typically a journal will have a volume for each year, or it can have for a fall and for a academic year or something like that. So each journal will have a volume of its own, and followed by the issue number, which is nothing but the number of issues per year. There are journals which has monthly issues, so that will have 12 issues per year. Bi-monthly, it could have 6 issues and so on. So that issue you put it as NO or IS dot, and finally the month and the year of publication. So this is one way. I'm saying again, not the only format, one way of how we can put a journal format. Clear? And how you can put a conference format, I put it here, which is similar. Now, if you, and as I've said before, the first one is something which is not yet published, and second one is something which is published. Okay? This is not yet published, that's why I put selected here, and this one is a published one. Okay. So if you are watching clearly, if you are reading it, I've given 3 authors here, and I put et.al, which means it is advisable to put in most formats, like you have number of authors, more than 3, you put the first 3 authors' name, and you can put et.al, which means and many more. Okay. So it's very advisable to put like that. Something like you cannot try to include many authors. You can refer to many papers from the East, in the Mid East, where you can have as many as 5 to 10 authors. Okay, it's not advisable to put all of them into it. You can put the top 3 authors, and you can just put et.al. And if your name is covered in the final office, there's nothing harm. You can put your name at the third, and you can just put et.al. Okay. Followed by the title of the paper, followed by the title of the paper. I've given it in red. Followed by the excuse me for a second. Yeah, I think I've just got a question from the chat here. I'll just go behind this one. I think they have a doubt with IMRAD. Uh, there's nothing wrong to interrupt me. I'm happy to answer you. So it is okay. So IMRAD is for introduction. I for introduction, M for method, R for result, and D is for discussion or description. Okay. Repeat. I for introduction, M for method, R for results, and D for discussion. This is not narrowed down to technical publishing. It is narrowed down to, sorry, it is broadened to all kinds of publishing. Okay. So it's generally for, I'll make a confession here. It's generally got from PubMed only. PubMed is for only medical databases. Okay. From there only I got this idea. I don't know if it's there for technical journal, but you can very well follow this one. I remember there was an editor who asked me, make sure that this is in the format, or you try to make that comments only once. So there's nothing wrong. You go ahead with IMRAD. Okay. Introduction, method, results, and discussion. Introduction is why you are doing this one. Why? Method for how you are going to do this one. Results is what happens when outcomes of your thing. Discussion is what's next. I repeat. Introduction is answers why. Method answers how. Results answers what happens, and final discussion what's next. Okay. Finally, okay. Yeah, this is it. If you can take a snapshot or something like that, it's clear with how you need to write about conference. I have wantedly bolded that Springer's proceeding. Springer, because I just want to show that I have a good publication. That is not a mandatory one. It's an optional one. You can just put the publishing name. And finally, it's important in conference, you need to put the venue of conference. I have put this University of Calgary, Italy. It is not me. My colleague is going to present it in July the 3rd. So it's not yet been published. So I'm just not putting any page number or ISBN number. So I just put selected here. Okay. So that's how you can just format or kind of reference it for a conference. And the bottom you have a conference that's already been published. Okay. There's differentiator service, that thing. It's self-explanatory, I guess. Author's name, separated by and commas, followed by the title of your paper, and followed by the conference name. Make sure that you put what publisher it is. IEEE proceeding, Elsewhere proceeding, Springer proceeding, or whatever it is. Okay. Then nothing harm. Like you can just put 7th or 8th number, or you can just put conference on communication networks. And about this acronym thing, that's I put ICCN here. If the conference is very famous, okay, BroadNet is very famous when it comes to networking. So for that, sometimes you need not to elaborate that one. You can just put BroadNet conference. It's very famous. Some conferences may not be famous, so you can always put elaborate, or you can expand whatever you are trying to write. Okay, followed by the ISBN number, which is going to be book number. Okay, and the page numbers, followed by the date of the conference. That's important. For journal, you can always put month and year, but for conference, it's advisable you put the date of the conference and the venue. And sometimes it sounds funny. You need not to put the country name if you are in India. Okay, if you're giving this particular, referencing to an Indian academician or a college or organization or a research place in India, some people avoid the country name, but it's nothing harm in putting the country name as well. Okay? So that's how you try to format it. Now the big question arises: is it the only way to reference a particular journal or conference? No, it is never. There are n number of referencing styles available. All that you need to refer is, you please try to follow this website, which I given at the bottom. LIB guides reading.ac.uk/citing references/referencing styles. Okay. Some of the reference style are given at the top: MHRA, Oscola, Harvard, MLA, APA, Chicago, and Vancouver. All these are pertaining to that particular place or the particular, place or the publishing. So in this website, you can go through number of reference styles. So what I have given before is a decent style for referencing, which you can try to put in your academic works unless and until they have mentioned any particular format for referencing. Make sense? So that referencing is so okay. So finally, once you have done your paper and you're giving it to a journal, okay, all that you need to remember is you have to give a good cover letter. Okay. So what's the cover letter? It's very common. Even I've done. I've been doing it also. Let me make a genuine confession here, which is very wrong. Don't try to put an inbuilt cover letter to an editor. Okay. You may have an inbuilt cover letter when you try to refer it through the internet. Dear editor, this is me. I'm so and so. I'm trying to work on a project on this one, and I'm having a paper. I would like to publish in a journal. Kindly do the needful. Something like that. You put it. It is not going to convince your editor. Okay. Editor is going to have whoever he is going to have a number of papers into his mailbox regularly. So make sure that your letter is convincing to the editor first of all. Okay, you try to add your achievements in that particular domain, not the other domain. You just don't put it, sir, I am a very good researcher in AI. I've done a lot of works into that one, but your paper should not be on image compression. That doesn't convince the editor. Okay. Suppose you're putting a paper in AI and you've written a paper on AI and you've done something on AI, you mention that one. Only then your editor will be convinced. And make sure that you try to channel your paper content into that scope of a particular journal. Every journal is going to have a scope or a mission, whatever it is. So you try to tailor fit that particular your work to the scope of the journal. That's very important when you're trying to convince an editor. Okay. And second, why this journal? Again, you're going to mention in the cover letter. You can just say one argument is your work is kind of tailor fitting to the journal content or the editor's idea, whatever it is. So you can just try to channel that one. So you try to answer why this journal question as well. Thirdly, you try to make it a personalized cover letter. Okay. Suppose, say for example, you have a editor name as Marcus. Okay. Say for example, his name is Marcus. Make sure you put dear Marcus. There's nothing wrong. It's very good. You are personalizing a mail to someone. They will not feel offended. They may not feel something like, okay, he's not calling me a sir or a ma'am or mademoiselle, whatever it is. They will not feel for it. You just put with their name. Everybody loves to be called by their name and not by some kind of title or whatever it is generally. So make sure you address the editor by the name. And finally, the mother of all blunders you should not make is avoiding careless mistakes. It is very common to address in a long journal. Okay, suppose you're it's very common, like we'll have ideas of 2-3 potential journals and where we want to put it. Sometimes we should not try to address to journal A and put it to journal B. Okay, like you are writing dear Marcus to someone named like Watson. Okay, say for example, you don't address Watson as dear Marcus, he's going to reject your paper right away. So make sure that you don't give a wrong name or to a wrong journal. You don't, suppose he's taking care of a journal called a Journal of Networks. You don't put them, I am very much interested with your Journal of Science. Then you will feel really offended. Something like you are, congratulating Indian captain and saying that best wishes, let Pakistan win the World Cup. Something like that. So make sure you are avoiding careless mistake. This may sound funny, but I have not been in this editor seat. But I don't know. But I have heard people saying like that. They used to get lot of wrong name letters from the authors. Okay, so make sure that you avoid the careless mistake. Finally, you've created your paper. You got it published. Okay, now you are sending the cover letter. You have followed all the guidelines. You're getting it published. How do you promote your paper? Okay, first reason, do you need to promote? I'll tell you one thing. We live in an age where everything requires advertising. Okay, not like old times where the word of mouth can try to promote the things that you want to. Obvious idea of promotion is social media. You try to write or you try to hyperlink your paper's idea to the social media accounts that you carry. Nothing wrong. You can create a Facebook page, you can make a Twitter feed or Insta, whatever it is, and you try to give the paper in that one. Okay, when you put in social media, don't try to stuff in technicalities into it. Make sure that it's easily readable to the people so that it will be readable to your friends. Okay, the idea of promoting a paper in social media is to make sure that you have written this paper to your friends and your close aides or something like that. Secondly, update your LinkedIn profile. Okay, whatever paper you are trying to publish, you try to stuff it into the LinkedIn. You are aware of LinkedIn, I guess. It's a professional network, and to put it in LinkedIn in addition to Facebook or Twitter is because LinkedIn is going to make your paper accessible to your colleagues or the people whom you are associated professionally with. Facebook and Twitter is going to earn the subscribers for your paper. Like they'll be like on a personal level only. But for LinkedIn, that's going to be on a professional level. Okay, so that's a very reason you're trying to put it in LinkedIn. And yeah, yeah. Third is you try to have a good ResearchGate, wall there. Okay, I think you're aware of ResearchGate, or you can just Google search it. You create a good credential for ResearchGate. It's easy for create, free only. So once you create it, you can get associated with research from the domain. The reason for creating a ResearchGate, I'll tell you, there could be a particular paper which is in a database, say for example IEEE, but the IEEE is not going to give free access to all the publishers. Okay, in such a case, you can have a close contact with a particular author in ResearchGate and you can request the publish from him. Okay, he or she can give that particular paper out for free for the people to read, not for researchers, but at least for students. Okay, so ResearchGate can be a good platform to promote your paper. People will read your paper. Okay, that's really good. Google Scholar. I wantedly didn't put the Google Scholar into a good database list. Why? Because Google Scholar is generally going to have all kind of databases like IEEE or Springer or Elsevier, whatever it is, into it. And the aim of Google Scholar is going to have all kind of database into it. Okay, so have a good Scholar page and try to update it as and such so that you can promote your paper in a larger scale in a Google audience. Okay, and it's good to write a blog. Okay, and I was telling, not everyone you meet or known to you are going to be technically sound, or at least technically they will be too much naive with your discipline or something, whatever you write. So make sure you try to put it as informal as possible in the form of blog, and you share the blog with your friends, and they can share it with someone who could be technically sound, and they can indeed click the link to your paper. Make sure you stuff or you hyperlink the blog site so that they will try to read the paper, so whatever you want to. And finally, this not come as a part of promotion, but you have a good ORCID ID. Okay, so what's an ORCID is going to be Open Researchers and Contributors ID. Okay, Open Researchers and Contributors ID. You can refer to the internet. You just type in ORCID in Google search, you'll get it. If you have wondered what was the ID which I've kept in title slide, is nothing but this one. Okay, you can. It takes just a few seconds or a minute or so, not few seconds. Literally speaking, like it will be like 1 minute or two. You can just try to register your ORCID and you can get a number like that. Okay, so what is the idea behind the ORCID? It's going to give a unique ID for you. That's all. See, my name is, I feel it's a little bit distinct. Terence Frederick Fernandez is very much distinct, I feel personally, because when I just referred my name through the internet, there has been one Canadian footballer by name, the full name, Terence Frederick Fernandez, and more than that, I couldn't find anyone with all those three names together. But very commonly, we do have names that are shared with many others in this world. Okay, might be in our own locality as well, just initial change. So in those conditions, there could be, I don't say a word theft here, but there could be a possible confusion or chaotic situation with your paper published and someone else who shares the same name as you. So in such a way that you can always have an ORCID ID, which you can always put it in square bracket after your name when you're putting in any paper. So that will uniquely identify your identification with respect to other researchers. Okay, so that is always a good principle or habit when you are trying to write a paper. So I will summarize with the first part of today's session. Have a clear research objective, new, converting data to facts, unpublished, whatever it is. Then you make sure that you search for a good journal from good databases, as I was mentioning, Elsewhere, Springer, whatever it is, and choose the best fit. Okay, you are writing a paper on image compression, choose the journal only that has a scope on image compression. Don't choose something on AI, or you have something on IoT. Don't choose something on nanorobotics or whatever it is. Okay, make sure that it fits to the journal. Okay. Third is make sure you read the author's guidelines, starting from the format, type of publishing, whatever it is. Make sure that you organize your paper using the IMRAD format to fit to the journal. Write a good covering letter by convincing the editor, addressing him as name, and finally, make sure you promote your paper. Okay. So this are the summarizing factors of the first part of how you can write a good paper. Okay. I think I am indebted to give you a small idea on indexing. So what is an indexing? Actually, indexing is not necessarily to be understood by you people. Like you can just have an idea. There are a number of indexing available, like H index, I10 index, and G index, and they will try to weigh your paper by some metrics. Okay, that is only for admin, because admins, they will not understand the technical aspects of any domain. So what they will try to do is they will try to have some metrics that will calculate the your paper. Nothing more than that. Okay, it is created by admin people who are not technically sound or are not sound in the domain of the particular paper, and they want to weigh the paper. That's all. So first is an H index. H index is calculated by a formula of 0.5 into square root of n, or that formula sounding a little bit confusing. I'll tell you another one. Before continuing that one, H is created by a scientist called as Hirsch, SIRSCH, who is going to, that is the name it has come as H index. You have a small database which I have created by myself. You have a paper ID ABCDE with the citations, corresponding citation 107620. I think you are aware of the citations, which means that number of times the paper has been referenced by other papers. Okay, so those are citations. So H index for this particular author. Okay, this database is belonging to author X. So X is having 5 papers, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, those papers, which are having citation 107620. So H index of paper is going to be nothing but H out of N paper which are being cited H times. I repeat, H a value out of N, that is the number of publication. Here it is 5, which is being cited H times. So now let's take the H value as 5 now. N itself will take it. Value of N is 5, number of papers. So now we'll take the H value of 5. 5 out of 5 papers, are they cited 5 times each? No, only 3 papers, as you can see, 10, 7, and 6. These 3 papers only are cited more than 5 times, 5 or more than 5 times. So 5 out of 5 papers are not cited 5 times. Now let us make one reduction here. Are 4 out of 4 papers, 4 out of 5 papers cited 4 times each? Certainly not. We have 4 papers which are cited only 2 times. So we cannot have an H index of 4. Thirdly, check if 3 out of 5 papers are cited 3 times each. Yes, it is. So H index is going to be 3 here, because we have 10 citations, 1 paper, 7 citations, second paper, 6 citations, third paper. So we have at least 3 papers which are cited 3 times. So the H is going to take a value of 3 here. Makes sense? So that's an H index of this particular author. I10 index, as the name says, any number of papers which has an index more than 10. Clearly, it's 1 here. Okay. These two are very famous index, which you can find it in almost every database. Okay? And finally, there is an index called as G index, which is not there in many. It is given by a guy called as Leo Eggy. Okay, not so significant, but the importance of H index is going to be an improvement. Maybe in future it may come surface through, but now it's not there. Just understand that G papers with G square citations. Okay, so G papers with G square citation means we have 5 papers. Do we have 5 papers with 5 square 25 citations? No. 4 papers with 4 square 16 citations? No. 3 papers with 3 square 9 citations? No. But we do have 2 papers with 2 citations, sorry, 4 citations, right? 2 papers A and B with at least 4 citations, that is 2 square citations. So that gives the G index of the author as 2 here. Make sense? Okay, I think I was asked to wind up before 15. Okay, so I just skip few things. Okay, yeah, I'll do that, sir, surely, 4:15. Yeah, thing is that so it's about citations. You have questions, you are free to ask. And there is something called as journal metrics, which I thought I want to take it good, but since time is not permitting, I'll just go fast. You refer to this website, libraryguides.mggill.ca/impact/journal. Top right left, you see, there is a website. Please note it down. You can refer to this image that's given there. Okay. There are a lot of things. For example, agent factor metrics is going to give how many of people are going to read your journal. Impact factor is going to give how many are reading your paper from the journal. Okay, something like that. And H5 median is going to be the median of the H index that you are having with the number of papers. And you have an SNIP, SJR. SJR is going to be Science Citation Index journal rank, and SNIP is going to be a kind of source normalized impact per paper. Okay, something like that. All this will have a formula which are there in that thing, or if you want to ask in the query session, I'll be happy to help you out if I may know the answer. Okay, generally number of citations are there which you can try to. So that ends up our first part. The second part, as I was telling, the vagues or the confusing things. See, these days we are all submerged into news across social media. Predominantly all are fake news. Similarly, lot of things about manuscript, in my opinion, if I may say, take a liberty saying, are fake things are there. Now I am here to bust the myths. I thought I'll make it an interactive session, but since I don't have much time, maybe I'll try to give it like that. You try to make sure you try to answer it in the way that you want. I'll give a 10 question here. You give me an answer as true or false. If it's true, you try to give it in the chat window as fact. If it is a false, you try to give it as myth. Okay. The first question to all the participants, I hope the chat screen is open now. Uh, shall we have titles of any manuscript without jargons or without any technical aspects into it? Can I have some answers?
Sir, chat is open, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, let me see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's giving false. Certain people are given false. I think you can just I'll just give few seconds. You can give. Okay. Some are giving false. Yeah. I'll tell you. Title has to be free from technical aspects. Okay. If the title is very complicated, I feel in most journals they will not try to select it. So make sure the title is free from deep technical aspects. Okay. That's the first thing you need to remember. Second, editors are going to read the full paper at least once. True or a false? Okay, if you answered or not, I'm just going to give you due to lack of time. It's a myth. Okay, I'll tell you, editors are very busy people, as I told you before. They are not going to have a full time to read your full paper. So what they'll do is they will only read the abstract. I'll try. I want to share one of the experience that I had way back in 2012 when I tried to send a paper of English compression to a journal. So in that, what happened is uh, there was a title something like adaptive on the fly compression. Okay, I sent it to a editor. He has just sent me back like saying that this is. Uh, I'm sorry, I was just sending it to a network journal. Sorry for the mistake. And he has just sent it like it's a compression paper. Don't send it to me. But what was in the inside was on the fly. It's going to be networking term. So what I've learned from that part was editor are some editors only read the title alone and they just forward to the reviewer if it's interesting. So editors will not have a time to read the full paper. Mostly they read only the abstract or only the title. Okay? And secondly, thirdly, language.
Sir, query study unaru.
Yes, a language must be simple. That's important. Why is it so? Because you put, I'll give it to you. It's a fact. Why it's simple? Because you are not writing a paper linguistic paper here. You're not going to write a paper on arts. You're going to write a science paper here. We are all technical people here. Make sure the language is understandable. That's very important. It's good to add vocabulary. Nothing wrong. Alternate terms are welcome if it is corresponding to technical things. Okay, you can try to give network as architecture. It's nothing wrong, but don't try to put vocabulary, adjectives, or kind of very professional adverbs into it. Nobody's going to weigh your paper on that one. Okay, you get a paper rejected. Can you send it to another journal? No, you don't do that. There is an ample chance for blind reviewing. You have the same reviewers for all the journals. So in those conditions, make sure that you are not trying to send the rejected paper to another journal. That is a very dumbest thing that you can do. You try to get their comments, revise it, then you can send it to another journal, even if it's rejected. Okay, rejection also will have a good number of reviewers' comments. You can incorporate that one and send it, because there's a good chance the same reviewer can serve for different journals, because it's a related paper. He or she can serve in different journals. So revise the paper and then you try to send it. Present tense in English for known facts and past for results. Not a rule, but it generally can be followed. Make sure you follow the present tense in English for known facts. You're giving some known fact, nothing is wrong. Traffic doubling is happens to the internet. True, very true. So you can write in present tense. And past for results. You can just say that the results were conducted on this particular. You can use past tense. There's nothing wrong. Okay. Then a paper is taking a long time for publishing. It's a good journal. It's a myth again, because not all journals that takes a long time is a good journal. Okay, certain particular journal will not have a good standards. I don't want to name anything, but you can refer those journals which are being terminated out of UGC or Annexure 1, whatever it is. So those journals have been taking a long time, but they are not up to the standards. Okay, not naming anything, but general speaking, if it's taking a long time, it's not a good journal. It could be a good journal, and some good journals are even there with short acceptance time. You have to always remember that. And submitting to more than one journal is very common. Like you are trying to get your paper put in a very good journal and a subclass journal together. It's not a good thing. Don't do it. Okay, that's again a bad thing. So don't submit it to more than one journal. Okay, that's a fact check. You need to do it. Yeah, and this is a confusion, I guess, for many. Okay, because I had it, I want to share it here. So what about rarity of a case? Excuse me for a second. Yeah, rarity of a case can be a criterion for acceptance. Is it? So for example, just for example, you don't have any kind of solution for optical buffering. That case is not at all discussed. Sorry, that optical buffering is not at all discussed. Not all that. There's only delay available. There's no optical buffering available. So if you can put a paper, can you get published? No, it's not the case. But if you're putting a solution for it, you have a good implementation model for that, you will get an acceptance for publication. Something like you can just say, like when, let's just say, for example, there was a widespread of pandemic here, and you're putting in a PubMed journal index database way back in January, when you ask. COVID is a recent disease which I want to publish. We just put it. That's not going to be criteria. But if you put a solution or kind of treatment, that could be a good source of acceptance. Then finally, you have a highly indexed or class journals. Will they accept survey papers? It's true. Example, ACM surveys. They have very good impact factor, and they are at the top level of journalists. They accept only survey papers. But the beautiful thing among that one is they accept those papers where the survey is being done in a story fashion. Always remember, when you write a paper, make sure that you write in a story way. Don't try to put all the data and things into it. And if it's written in a very good way and convincing way, your paper is going to get accepted. There are journal available that only accept survey papers, so you can always put into that one. And finally, time to send your paper to the editor. I want to discuss this one in cover letter, but let me discuss it to this one. We always look for auspicious time. Sorry, we always look for good time and bad time as Indians. We all do that. Is it good to see that your paper to the editor is good time or bad time? Yes, we must. Let me fight the confusion out of you. I'll tell you. Uh, See, editors, as I told, they are busy people. They don't have all the papers to read. So make sure that you're sending your cover letter or paper to the editor when the editor's local clock is morning 8 o'clock. Okay? When the time of the editor is morning 8 o'clock, you send it. Because you're sending it, if their time is way back in night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, number of papers is going to flood into his or her mailbox, and he's not be able to read your paper at all. So make sure that you are sending to the editor when the time for him or her to read is 8 o'clock or in the morning time, so that he or she can go to his office or to his place or sit in the front of his system or something like that and read your paper. Okay, so that's significant aspect. So these are the wave factors which I mentioned now. Okay, and finally, some trends. I'll just swiftly go through. I think I have few 4 minutes, so I'll just go through what is new or what is the trend. Okay, I am not, as I've told, I have mentioned disclaimer. I've not reviewed much papers, but I used to talk with my peers there who tries to give what are the trends of papers that are being published these days. Okay, first trend which I want to mention is about nano robots. Okay, you can see what are the issues on the left side. They're nothing but microscopic robots that can work under 10 power minus 9 dimensions. They are the robots that can operate through blood cells, and they can be used for diseases like HIV and cancer. They are not yet being done. Okay, they have some problem with accuracy. Say, for example, they want to repair some cells, they are going to spoil the good cells. Like it's not yet properly done. It's at the process of being doing. So there has been a lot of opportunities or trend available for you to write papers on its design, how to design that one, and accuracy, as I was telling, accurately spotting out a carcinogenic cell for a cancer and operating it out. Okay, that's the first thing which I want to mention. And secondly, on IoT, I think not to mention about IoT, you are all very much versed with that one. There will be network object, nothing more than that. You are having to have a user ID for unique ID for each autonomous objects without any human or computer interactions. There has been a widespread use of IoT in agriculture, in smart farming, and you have fog computing. I should mention fog or edge computing, which is nothing but a subset of cloud computing. Why the performance of fog or edge computing are used in IoT is because IoT is suffering from high latency between devices, in my humble opinion. So this latency can be reduced if you are trying to use an underlying fog architecture here, which people are working on these days. Okay, and mood evaluation. Okay, that is on emotional literacy among students. There is a good application called as Mood Meter. So mood evaluation is also done for using an IoT. And obviously, for each and every architecture, whatever you refer, there will be potential attacks, and you need to have a security control measures for each and every one of it. So that is again a trend for IoT. Okay, all these things: secure connections, attacks, mood evaluation, agriculture, and everything. Okay. The other popular name which been flooding these days are machine learning AI. Okay, um, obviously security. Any new algorithms developed, there's a need for security and kind of things. And there has been stock market advices, robo advices available, which are based on AI and machine learning, which you need to understand. And for medical, retinopathy means diabetes that affects the eyes. Okay, so using medical imaging and kind of deep learning kind of things. There are a number of publications on this one. And obviously, there has been a fusion with IoT and machine learning, which is being used for smart agriculture kind of thing, to sense the soil moisture, to get the amount of water for each and every plant, because not same amount of water will be required for all plants, and the fertilizer is based on soil, the weather conditions, all things. So that is where machine learning will come along with IoT. Okay, and the place where AI could fail. Okay, not every place the AI could we succeed. We all are aware of Turing test and everything. So where the AI could fail, humans should evolve better. Okay, with their knowledge on AI and everything. And blockchain, I think it's almost time. So we do have some kind of attacks and something to reduce storage in blockchain and so on. Okay, and on cyber security as well. So I think I'll wind up with whatever I'm trying. Okay, one more thing. And there are certain trends. What I'm telling you today may not trend tomorrow. And this slide is an example of that one. Okay, we had a Tizen OS, like it was evolved in 2012 and was stopped. It was Linux-based OS, and it gave an OS for everything. People thought it will replace Android, but it didn't do that. Okay, Tizen. Okay, and secondly, there was an Aereo, which was a TV for internet. It was evolved in 2014. After 2012, I'm sorry, 2014, it was a history. Nobody ever did anything on that one. And there was an Amazon Fire phone. We had an Amazon Fire, which was more famous than Amazon Fire phone, which worked on Fire OS. It started in 2014. It was shut down in 2015. So that was trended before it went down before anyone can even notice. And finally, on secret social media, something like a Facebook or on Twitter, but on contrary, you can talk about drugs or kind of illegal things into that one. Nobody will even do anything. Okay, so that was even blocked. Started in 2014 and de-trended in 2015. So these were the trends of yesterday, but never continued today. Okay, so in same way, whatever I was telling about trends of today may not trend tomorrow. It only rests in people's minds how they try to research into that one or to research onto something else which would eventually supersede this one. Okay, so that's all about my discussion. I like to again thank the management, the staff, the organizers, convener, and everyone for giving this wonderful opportunity to the Q&A session, if I may answer your questions. Thank you. Thanks for everything. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, sir.
Sir, 1 second, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, Pralad, sir.
Yeah, sir.
You can ask the question, sir.
Yeah, sir. I think I have completed on time, sir. Please,
Actually, there is a citation index.
yes, sir.
The impact factor, it's not common across journals, conference and all that. Somewhere it is 5, somewhere 2, somewhere 1, like that, right? What
Yes,
is that?
sir. Yeah. I actually wanted to talk more about that thing since I'm happy that you asked this question, sir. Let me take that one. Yeah. I'll tell you, sir, actually that impact factor has evolved from a metric from Web of Science.
And
Hello. Yeah, Web of Science, it has evolved. It is created by this Web of Science only. Okay. But where they are saying like it is going to be the number of people who reads your paper to the number of people who are reading the journal. Okay. So that's
people who read and
yeah,
then
yeah. Who's reading your paper
uh,
from the journal, sir.
okay.
Okay, so it is going to be specific for a journal, sir. Not for, it could change across different journals and across different publishers. It is
No,
a
but
metric.
some places it is 6 impact factor, some places 2, maximum 2, some. So it is not normalized, right? Across it is not. What is the reason?
Yes. That is a very thing, sir. It is only used as a metric when they try to. Yes, sir. For the admin, only for the Web of Science point of view. I want to kindly mention one more thing here. You're all clear about H index, which I was telling before, which is followed in Scopus, sir, and the other H index, which is seen as H5 index for Google Scholar. They both even have different ideas, not exact, but that's what I want to say. These metrics are limited to, sir, if I may say, to a particular publisher and limited to a journal, and not across these journals. That's a way of kind of measuring. Like certain people will say, like number of papers, pages are essential, significant for a journal, and some will say no. You can put a 3-page, and you can even have a good write-up. Like that.
Okay, good.
Sir, here there are few queries.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
From the participants to the resource person. Shall I proceed, sir?
Yeah, please, sir.
Okay. Here is one question. What is the difference between methodology paper and technical paper, sir?
I feel, the technical paper, I feel that any paper, I feel they do have superset and a subset kind of relation between them. Like you have whatever paper you write is going to be technical paper when it's based on technical stuffs. Okay, nothing more than that. But you are trying to put a new method into it, a new implementation to it. It turns into methodology. That is how you are going to go ahead with doing a stuff. That is going to be methodology. You're giving an algorithmic approach, it's going to be methodology. You're giving a survey one, it's not going to be methodology. Okay? That's a small difference.
Sir, next question. Is there plagiarism applicable for diagrams? And for any paper, how many graphs showing results is necessary?
Plagiarism, I feel it is very much.
Is it
important.
applicable for diagrams also?
Yeah, it is obviously, because if you have, sir, if anyone has followed what I was mentioning a content disclaimer at the start. At the start, the content disclaimer is directed only to the figures that I used. All these figures that I used are all copied. So I am trying to give a disclaimer at the start. Like that, there's nothing harm. You can make a cross reference on the diagram. This particular diagram is being referred from square bracket, the number of journal, or the author's name, however the format it is, you have to put it. It is important, it is significant. Or what you can do is you can try to use the diagram, you can draw yourself one by using some kind of modeling tools, and then you can make one into your paper. Even if you have redrawn the same thing, I always recommend that you try to cross-reference that one from where you have taken, because that could amount a large amount of plagiarism, especially in a good database journals. But in local or kind of non-peer reviewed journal, they may not take care much about it. And what are the second one, sir? First you said something.
For any paper, how many graphs showing results is necessary?
It depends on the kind of working that you're making, sir. Like, say for example, you have created one algorithm. Just say for example, you have created a routing algorithm. Let's make it very simple. A routing algorithm, you have channeled it. It's already there. You make some changes. Okay. There are three approaches here. One is you can create your own algorithm generally. Second is you can make changes to some algorithm. Third is you can add to some algorithm. Just we'll take an example of you have made some changes in an algorithm. Okay, and you have published it. Now what you can do is you have to have a comparative results between the kind of packet loss or the kind of transmission rate graph for your particular approach and the approach that was there before. Okay? So for that, I reckon that you try to use different topologies. Maybe you can use an ARPANET, you can use an NSFNet, you can use a 10-node net, or you can use, there's something called as there's a 128 net topology. So if you can take 4 or 5 topologies, and I was telling there are 2 parameters that I can take, a bandwidth and a transmission rate. So you can put 5 to 10 graphs to that one. So the more number of graphs, I feel that would make the the acceptor, that is the editor or the reviewer, to feel that you have done some work on this one. Again, that is again a constraint. If the particular journal is going to expect the results to you, if it is just going to accept any results, then no problem. But if it's expecting results, you try to put as many as possible. There's nothing wrong.
So, Professor Frederick, sir, this is Professor Subbareddy, sir.
Yes, sir.
Head of CSE Department, RGM
Yes,
Engineering College.
Yes, sir. Honored to have you, sir.
I thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation.
Yes.
FDP. This is very much useful for our faculty community, sir.
Sir, I feel the feeling is mutual, or if I should say that this feeling is exponentially more here for being accepting me, this humble abode myself to be presenting to your college. I'm so happy and honored, and thanks to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sir, there is one query, sir.
Yeah.
Is there any free plagiarism software to check the originality of paper?
Yeah, that is, Turnitin, all these things are there, available on the website, Turnitin, or way that we had Grammarly, whatever it is. You can try to check it, but I reckon you are if anyone is a writer, if I'm the writer, I know where I have copied and pasted. Everybody is not going to put A to Z of its own. I have my own way. I don't know if it's right. I can just share it with you. You can give it right or wrong. I used to put the plagiarized, that is, I'll copy copy paste. All these things I'll put it in red color in documents.
Okay.
And the other I'll put it in black. So this red thing, what I'll try to do is I'll try to rephrase it first of all, if there is a possibility. If I'm not able to rephrase it, I'll try to recoin the words that I want to. So once you try to rephrase it, it's not going to turn yourself into that one. Okay. So that you can generally do it. And method of storytelling will always work out good. You take the data and convert to facts. So once you do that, all the plagiarism will go away. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult to do that. I feel that converting data to facts is a very tiresome one. Once you do that, it's easy. Turn it in is a good thing, which you can always refer.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
On behalf of Department of CSE, RGM CET, Nandal,
Yes,
we
sir.
would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our eminent speaker, Dr. Terence Frederick Fernandez, for delivering a wonderful session on the second day of our workshop on article writing. Hope this session will definitely help all the participants in publishing more papers in their future. We thank all the participants for their patient listening. We request all the participants to join day 3 session, that is on tomorrow by 3 p.m. sharp. So thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.